Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Lori Kangas Olson. I go by she, her, and I am a 58-year-old woman with caramely color hair. My hairdresser tells me that's what it is. And I am joined today by my colleague, Linnell Hansen, who is managing our technology. And uh, we'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us for today's session on a mindful path to peace through purposeful decluttering. Before we start, I have a few housekeeping items. We are excited to announce that today's webinar will be accessible to a wider audience. We have arranged for an ASL interpreter who will be present throughout the session, and these interpreters will rotate every 20 minutes, ensuring that everyone can follow the content effectively. To access the interpretation feature, simply click on the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen. Additionally, we are recording the entire webinar with the ASL interpretation, and the recordings will be available on our YouTube channel for later viewing. Whether you attend the live session or catch up later, you'll have the opportunity to engage with the material in a way that suits your needs. And I encourage you to subscribe to our channel so you can keep up with the latest additions to our video library. We are always looking for suggestions for future webinar topics, and if you have suggestions for topics or speakers, feel free to send those to our email, which I will share in the chat. Please keep your microphone set on mute. Just a note, if you experience any issues with your bandwidth or audio quality, it often helps to disable your camera. If you'd like, you can enter your first name and organization into or community that you're from in the chat, what you are hoping for to get out of today's session and how you found out about it. If you have any questions during today's session, please feel free to enter your questions into the chat and we will coordinate times where you'll be able to have, excuse me, you'll be able to have your questions answered. And at the close of today's session, you will see a quick evaluation of today's session pop up on your browser. And please take a moment and complete the survey. It helps us greatly when planning our future sessions. Now, about Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging. The Arrowhead Regional Development Commission is designed by the Minnesota Board on Aging as the Area Agency on Aging for the planning and service area under the authority of Title III of the Older Americans Act. The Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging, or the Quad A, is committed to helping older adults maintain their highest level of independence. Area agencies on aging are regional organizations and provide the services, support, and information for just about everything that older adults and their families could need. Minnesota has 7 AAAs across the state that are the local connections to older Minnesotans and the community support that they need as they age. The Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging's planning and service area includes the counties of Aiken, Carlton, Itasca, Koochiching, Lake, and St. Louis County. Now, before we get going, I would like to read our land acknowledgement. The Arrowhead Area Agency on Aging Land Acknowledgement. As we support our mission to help older adults maintain their highest level of independence, we do so while being respectful of the space we are being welcomed into by Indigenous people. We strive to deepen our understanding of the multiple ways in which people see and understand land and acknowledge the Indigenous people who have relationships with this land. We also acknowledge the decades of historical trauma, loss, and grief experienced by Indigenous people. It is our promise to not only recognize these truths, but also take action to show support of our Indigenous elders, neighbors, and friends, and understand our place within the past, present, and future of this land. We know this is just one step in recognizing and honoring the sovereignty of tribal nations. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Amanda Robertson. Amanda Robertson is a professional organizer who has loved order and patterns her entire life. Long before decluttering became a cultural moment, Amanda was dreaming of a business built around helping people simplify their spaces. In July of 2021, she took the leap, and she hasn't looked back. Amanda works with clients to help them make intentional choices about their belongings, reduce clutter, and create living spaces that support clarity and calm. She brings both practical skill and a warm, personal touch to every home she walks into. Amanda, we're so glad that you are with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori, for having me. I'm excited to be here today, and that was a very kind introduction. Beautiful. Well, yes, so my name is Amanda, and I have a small business called Declutter Duluth, and I work with clients individually in their homes, as well as give classes like this. So I'm glad to be part of this webinar. Um, well, if we'd like to start with the first slide, I'll begin with an overview of where we'll be headed today with the class. Let's pop back for 1 minute there. There we go. Thank you. Okay. First, I want to start by hopefully getting everyone feeling motivated to begin your decluttering projects at home. Next, I'll share the simple method that I use to declutter any size space from a junk drawer to a room full of boxes of assorted items. Then we'll briefly touch on a few pro tips for purchasing organizational products, and then cover a few specific common decluttering areas, paperwork and collections. And then finally, we'll end with acknowledging the emotional side of decluttering. All right, so let's begin with a little bit of motivation. Okay, so um, imagine with me, if you will, the cost of the material items that we spent that fill our homes. We can pop to the next slide there. And I don't mean just the dollar amount that we paid for each item, but also the physical cost of our things, the amount of space that each item occupies, the mental cost, and the time cost, and the freedom that your stuff may be taking from you. Perhaps rather than thinking that we can't get rid of our things because they once cost a certain amount in money, we're forgetting that we continually pay for each of the items in our home. And perhaps the most cost-effective choice is to let some of it go. I have a quote here. Some things cost more when we keep them. And I think that's true. On to the next slide here. Speaking of the mental cost of our stuff, do you ever feel like the weight of our stuff may come from the fact that it's asking for our attention? One organizer calls this the silent to-do list. It's the mental burden created by our possessions that constantly demands our attention. They need cleaning, fixing, and organizing. And this can lead to stress and reduced focus. For instance, those recipes that you cut out from magazines that are shaming you for not cooking them, or the clothes that you don't wear that are wondering why you haven't. These silent messages can get louder the more that we neglect them. And the only way to silence this to-do list is either to do everything or simplify and declutter. Decluttering helps reduce these messages, allowing for a more peaceful and intentional home environment because our minds need a place to rest. Finally, in putting our minds in the right motivated state to tackle decluttering, consider that your clutter might be detrimental to your purpose. And what do I mean by that? I mean that perhaps you're missing out on things that are important to you because of your stuff. Would you be able to spend more time with your family or friends or on a hobby or learning something new if your clutter wasn't keeping you at home or holding you back? If given the choice, how would you rather spend your time? All right, so my goal here is not to make you feel bad about the things in your home, but I want to cast a little light on the bondage that clutter can cause for us. I want you to feel motivated to tackle your clutter and feel free from it. I want you to enjoy the items in your home that mean the most to you and feel like you can release the rest. I want your home to be safe to move around in, and I want you to be able to enjoy your life, not be stuck in your clutter. It is possible to gain control over your stuff. All right. So next we're going to move on to the method that I use to organize any size space. It's 4 steps, so we'll take a deep breath and dive in. The first step in decluttering is to relocate the items that you wish to organize. We can pop on to the next. There we go, real quick. Okay. Um, all right. So what I mean by that is empty the space, remove any items from the shelves or out of the boxes or from within the drawers. For instance, if you were going to tackle decluttering your clothes, I would suggest bringing them out of the closets and drawers and spreading them on your bed. Or if you were organizing a box of assorted items, maybe find a workspace where you can spread out the things found in the box. Removing items from the space and bringing them out into the light of day will cause you to consider them differently. I like the words reveal or uncover or unearth. Your things want to remain just where they are, but bringing them out from their usual storage causes each item to make a case to you as to why it should remain. Bring everything out for scrutiny. The second step is to categorize your items that you've just spread out. This can either be done while you're removing them from the space or once everything's out in the open. Grouping things into categories means sorting like with like or putting them with other items that serve the same purpose. For instance, if you were organizing your bathroom storage, your categories may include things like medicines, hair products, extra shampoo and soap, bandages, first aid, nail care, linens. Begin with broad categories first. Once everything has found a group where it seems to fit, then you can feel free to narrow those categories down if you wish. Rather than just medicine, you could sort out smaller categories such as prescriptions or vitamins I use every day, or cold and flu, etc. All right, so to recap, the first 2 steps were to relocate and categorize. We're halfway through the process. Now, following the categories that you've produced, the third step of the process is to prune. To prune means to cut, trim, or remove superfluous or dead branches, twigs, and roots from trees and plants to encourage better growth and health or appearance. I like this terminology because I like to garden and because it gives us a sense that we're not getting rid of things because they're worthless, but because decluttering and trimming the excess allows the whole, our households, our minds, our space, to thrive. Pruning doesn't carry a negative connotation, it's a positive. It helps the whole plant thrive and grow productively. Now, by this stage in the game, you've already sorted items into categories, and you can see how many of each item type you have. So pruning means going through each category and determining what to keep and what may be excess. Perhaps if we go back to the bathroom example, you could go through your nail care items and get rid of the polished colors you no longer use or are dried up. You can throw away the emery boards that are worn smooth or the pair of clippers that doesn't trim as nicely as the other pairs you've now found. Or if we were going through your closet and have organized categories such as pants, skirts, casual tops, dressy tops, dresses. Well, now that we're in the prune stage, my advice would be to go back through each category one by one and decide what you really wear, what really fits, and what deserves to go back into your closet. As a pro tip within the pruning process, It's best to start with the smallest or easiest or least sentimental categories first. Then you can work up to the larger or more thoughtful categories. Now, with pruning, if you're a more analytical person who does best with concrete ideas, perhaps it's helpful to use a few questions as you prune. And those are on the next slide there. For instance, the 1 year rule. Have I used this item in the last year? Would I buy it again if given the chance? Would you spend the same money again on the same item? Is this item easily replaceable? Am I keeping this out of guilt? Do I have duplicates of this type of item? Or going back to the motivators we talked about at the beginning, what is this costing me to keep? So once you've gone through the categories one at a time, the fourth and final step of the decluttering process is to reimagine your space and put everything back thoughtfully. Perhaps this is also a good moment to give the space a wipe down or vacuum. At this point, the hardest work is now behind you. Everything has been removed, sorted into categories, and pruned down to what you really use and need most. Now you can reimagine. You have the chance to put everything back in the space in the way that serves you best. You're starting fresh. How do you want this space to work for you? While you're returning your now pared down categories into the space, prioritize your items. Categories that you use daily should get the prime real estate. Give these items the eye-level shelf in the front where you can easily access what you need. Work with your habits and put things back into the space with this in mind. The space is yours to remake. Keeping everything in the categories that you've worked so hard to create, return these categories to the space in a way that will serve you well in the future. All right. Before we touch on a few special topics, paperwork and collections, we'll take a moment to look briefly at organizational products. Using product is something that can come into play at the reimagine stage as you're returning things to the space, especially in kitchens and bathrooms. Bins and lazy Susans can be helpful. But from an organizer's perspective, here are a few tips I have. First, you likely already have something in your home that you can use. You might not need to spend money on this. Look around for baskets or bins that might fit in the space. Second, only purchase a product after the prune stage, because then you have pared down your categories and know how you want them to fit in your space. Very importantly, measure. For instance, if you have a drawer in your bathroom that now you've sorted everything and you want to put it back in, you need to make sure that your organizational product is going to fit perfectly in that drawer. Product can often be helpful in bathrooms and kitchens. Lazy Susans are pretty nice, but I think that they should always have a rim so that as you spin things around, imagine your hair care products on a Lazy Susan. You don't want them tipping off. If you purchase a Lazy Susan, it usually either has a rim or don't, and I always recommend having a rim. Small boxes are easier to move and contain less to label. And perhaps most importantly, label. If you went through the hard work to complete the 4 steps and your space is now organized into categories that you can easily access and locate, don't let your good work go to waste. Label any bins so that your work endures. All right, well, that was the process, our 4-step process. Relocate, categorize, prune, and then reimagine the space. And I thought maybe we could take a moment to see if there are any questions before we carry on from here. So Lori, I'll defer to you. Did anything pop up?
Nothing popped up yet.
Okay. All right. We'll keep going. All right. So if you would like to try flexing your organizational muscles, maybe start small. Tackle a project that would take 20 minutes or less, like your purse or a junk drawer, and apply these 4 steps. With a win under your belt, you're ready to tackle something a little bigger. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground so far. we're going to move on to some special topics next, paper and collections. We'll start with paper. First, if you have a paper problem at home, please know that you are not alone. More paper comes in the mail every day, right? And if you're anything like me, computer and digital copies, basically anything techie is not in my wheelhouse. So I like when paper copies are sent to me in the mail. But without a good system to handle this constant flow, things can start to pile up pretty quickly. As an organizer, I would argue that the root of any paper trouble usually lies in the filing system. If you have what I call a living filing system, it's a system that's current, you know what's in there, you can quickly grab what you need. Perhaps you've even gone through it within the last year and weeded out anything that's no longer used or relevant. On the other hand, a dead filing system is a file cabinet that hasn't been opened for months or years. The papers inside are outdated and nothing new has been added. Perhaps the filing cabinet itself is buried in piles of papers, or bags, or boxes. Or maybe there's no filing system at all. So, where do you start with a paper pileup? The first step is a very simple keep and toss. Or if you'd like to refine just a little bit, you could say keep and recycle or shred. This is a bird's eye view of your paperwork. Recycle and make a shred bag for anything you can get rid of, and place anything you need in a special keep pile. Once you've identified the things that you want or need to keep, you can take things a step further and sort two new categories from the keep pile: file and action. Anything that you need to hang on to for long-term storage is your file pile. This will probably include things like your tax information, medical records, insurance, bills, licenses, and IDs, etc. I recommend hanging file folders for your files, which can be purchased on Amazon or any major retailer. Hanging files can live within a conventional file drawer, or there are also file folder boxes and bins that you can purchase. And then the action pile are the papers that require attention. They need to stay out for accessibility, for follow-up phone calls. They might include forms to return, etc. You could also call this your to-do pile. This pile can live wherever you sit to do your papers. It could be a basket on your kitchen counter if you like to work with your papers on your table, or maybe a desk. Work within the habits you already have. Then, with this system in place, when fresh paper comes in the mail, you can recycle the junk, file what needs to be kept in long-term storage, and put actionable items in your action or to-do space. All right, so that's paper briefly. Lori, are there any questions there so far, or should we keep going?
Why don't we keep going, Amanda?
Okay. All right, we have one more special decluttering topic that I cover in classes because it's a common one: collections. I wish we were sitting around a table right now because I'd like to hear what collections you might have. I've heard so many: Betty Boop items, shot glasses, dolls, teacups, Apple decor for teachers. If you're not ready to get rid of a collection that you have, that's okay. Decluttering isn't about getting rid of everything. It's about paring down what you have so that your favorite or most used items are highlighted rather than lost in the mix. But I'm going to give you a couple brief tips on collections. First, if you are ready to pare down, maybe keep the items that are a representation of the whole and take a picture of the rest. And maybe allow your friends and family to choose their favorites from the collection. I had a neighbor a number of years ago who passed away. Her name was Lou, and she collected elephants. And after she passed, all of her family came in and chose their favorite elephants to bring home to represent Lou's collection. And I always kind of wished that maybe she had done that when she was still around so she could have seen which items her kids took that were special to them. So that always comes to mind for me with collections. Before we wrap up, I wanted to acknowledge the fact that decluttering can be an emotional process. And we can pop onto the next slide there. Memories are associated with our physical space and our items. Decluttering isn't just getting rid of everything, but it gives us the ability to highlight our favorite and sentimental items. We can pop on to the next one there. Um, Perhaps as you declutter, it would be helpful to involve others in the process so that you can tell stories. So if you have friends or family that want to come and be a part of your decluttering, uh, I think it's important to tell stories. Maybe even share what you have enjoyed with others. Um, if it feels helpful to send your the things that you're getting rid of to somewhere meaningful, look around in your area to see what's available. I know things like blankets can be helpful at Animal Allies. There's a working clothes program at um, what's it called? The Damiano? Yeah, there's all kinds of useful places in town to send the things that you're ready to pass along. And if it's helpful to find those things that um, make it feel like it's okay to let go, maybe look around in your area and see what you're passionate about. Perhaps shift your mindset away from what you're giving up to what you're gaining. And if need be, return to the motivators that we talked about at the beginning. Finally, maybe you'll find things that you haven't seen in a while, and that could be that could be part of the joy of the process. All right, the last thing that we're going to cover here is a fun topic, rewards. If you have finished organizing a space, celebrate. If you've cleaned off a surface, perhaps put a vase of flowers there or a favorite item to highlight. If you've done a whole room, maybe even hire a cleaning service to clean the space or a painter to give the walls a fresh coat of paint. Celebrate your hard work. Enjoy some time with a special friend or take time for a hobby. And we've made it to the end. I hope that you feel motivated, but most of all, encouraged that you can tackle your stuff. And thanks for having me today.
Thank you, Amanda.
Mhm.
We do have a question here from Sue. Along with the papers and collections, do you have any special tips for all of those photos that have accumulated?
Oh, yeah, photos are kind of tricky. And there used to be a gal in town that specifically did photos, but she's moved on. As far as photos go, I think that's maybe an important area of decluttering to bring other people in on. I mean, if you have the stamina to label your photos on the back, um, or maybe have a family member over to help you with that and maybe share some of the photos, or even taking pictures on your phone of some of the photos and sending them out to the family that you think that that might be most relevant for, so they get shared. I know we never, I mean, it feels so wrong to throw photos away, but I think that there are some ways to make sure that they're preserved and shared with those that it matters to.
I also think about it with photos that when you have the film developed and some of them didn't turn out quite the way you wanted to, um, I've given myself permission to throw those away because they're
Sure.
just horrible photos.
Yeah, just save the ones that you want to continue on. That's true.
Here's another one. Besides things you have too much of, the what other criteria for the pruning stage?
I guess anything that's excess. You really just want to keep the items that you use the most and that are special to you. Anything beyond that, even if it's a good item, I think that it can be let go. And there's no guilt in bringing things to Goodwill and Savers because there are always, folks that are just starting their homes or, um, that might need those more than you. So if it's not special to you or needed in your home, it's okay to let anything beyond that go.
Okay, do we have any other questions? You can either put it in the chat or uh, take mute off and ask the question yourself. Okay. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming. Um,
Of
and
course.
if you happen to think of questions after today's session, you email. I put Brenda Schaefer-Pellinen's email in the chat, and uh, we can follow up with all registrants.
Mhm.
So while this is our final webinar for the week and the Get Your Ducks in a Row campaign, uh, so there are some in-person workshops that are coming up throughout the region where you can complete your advanced care planning documents with expert guidance. And please remember to visit ducksinarow.org for dates, locations, and registrations. And again, Amanda, thank you for so much for this session. And you've showed us that letting go can be a deeply meaningful act, and not just for ourselves, but for the people we love as well. And the idea that simply or simplifying your life is a gift to give to others. And I really appreciated the question, what is this costing you? And I think about the craft items I have in my basement going, this is costing me space, and per square foot it could actually be this much. So thank you for that. So today's recording will be available on our YouTube channel in the next coming days, and we'll send a link to all the registrants. And you can find all of this week's recordings and more resources at ducksinarow.org and on arrowheadaging.org. So everyone have a wonderful day. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves, and if you can, take care of others.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.